You know what's really funny? This goes all the way back. The greatest myth that everybody has is I have to pay the tax someday. Why not now? And my clients will hear it from their accountant all day long. And I don't want to say it's because the accountant's lazy, but come on, we've already demonstrated you don't have to pay it. They'll get it from their financial advisor all day long. Now, that's a little more understandable because a financial advisor is not going to make money as long as you're investing in real estate.
Welcome to the Path to Passive podcast, where we talk about building wealth and empowering lifestyle through commercial real estate investing for tech professionals. I always wish that other tech professionals reaching financial freedom had documented their journey along the way, so I'm doing it for the rest of us. Join us as we explore stories, many failures, and lessons learned along the way. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Hey, my next guest is a degreed accountant and serial real estate investor. He's a qualified intermediary and consultant who shares his tax-saving strategies with investors who want to maximize their returns. Here in this episode, you're going to learn how you can transition from one investment property to another without paying a penny in taxes. And with a bit of advanced planning, this straightforward process will keep all of your capital working for your own benefit and help you grow your portfolio faster using your own tax dollars. Listen, this episode was so much fun to record, and I loved having this interview. There was a couple things that I really got to learn as well from, this tax professional, but also someone who, people talk about investing and wanting to make impact, etc. But, it's really cool how he approaches this from perspective of really combining life and investing, and how is you learn about the strategies, how you can really make the things that you want in life happen through real estate investing, not just, put some money in here or there and, get some money and use that money to do something else, but how to actually think about that all of the dollars not spent on taxes, or all the dollars saved and compounded over time, really have things behind them, right? The dollar spent could be time with family. The dollar spent can be time creating memories. The dollar spent can be time doing having freedom where you're not doing something else. And so we get to dive into the who, what, where of 1031s. We also talk about 121s, which if you haven't bought any real estate properties yet or other types of investments, but you have bought a primary home, how you can use the tax code, how you can use these tax codes to actually get up to 500,000 tax free from your primary home investment, primary home purchase, I'll say, and investment too at home. But so many different strategies he breaks down along the way to really start opening your eyes around tax code and how you can use this. And, honestly, he says right at the gate, may not be the most interesting thing, but honestly, accounting, language of business, understanding taxes, it's the penny not spent is the penny earned. And think about that, taxes being one of the biggest things too. So I know I say this on in every episode here, but I really, really mean it as much as the other times, which is a ton. Pay attention to this one. Take some notes, drop some comments, send questions, reach out to the guest as well. Start with the education and just kind of go from there. Start asking questions. This is not a short-term thing, but a longer-term thing. Anyway, I'm done talking. Like, subscribe, share, reach out. Let me know if there's other guests who'd like to talk about similar topics to go deeper, or just different ones in general. Hope you enjoy this one and listen up. It's a good one. Dave, Mr. Dave Foster, thank you so much for being on the show. I super appreciate that you're here. This topic we're going to talk about today that you are an expert in is something that's been top of mind, and I do get these questions from colleagues, fellow investors, etc. Today we're talking about the 1031 exchange. Tell me, walk us through what the heck is this 1031 exchange, and why does the listener need to care about this?
Hey, Stephen, it's great to be here. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because you think of like this thing is just this boring tax topic, right? But what are the two things people like to brag about the most? They like to brag about how much they didn't pay in tax. And honestly, in a perverse sort of way, sometimes we don't mind bragging about how much we had to pay, right? But that's where I live, the world of getting away from having to feed your silent partner, Uncle Sam, quite so well. And the 1031 exchange is a way to do that as a real estate investor. Because when you sell investment real estate, you have the opportunity using the 1031 exchange to sell that piece of investment real estate and buy a similar piece or multiple pieces or different types of investment real estate. And by following the process, you get to indefinitely defer paying the tax that you normally would have. So I mean, think about taking just the gain from, like, say, a $30,000 capital tax event and keeping that $30,000 to use for your benefit for the next 30 years. How much money could you make on that?
Yeah, that
Right.
compounds. Everything compounds.
That's exactly what the 1031 exchange allows you to do. And for you as the investor, you don't do anything different. You're still managing your real estate like you would. You're buying the exact same real estate you would. You're using it to transition your real estate exactly the same you would. Nothing's different except this little process in the middle, in between selling and buying. But that's the power that it gives you.
Awesome. So a couple key things. I'm just going to summarize and mention here, and I really want to pick on something that you said I think is so important. It was kind of unlocked for me here too, is that this is for investment real estate, and this exchange happens on the sell and of one type, one investment, and on the buy to something else, right?
Right, that's exactly right. It's kind of opposite from what we normally think of. Because, right, even the old mantra is you make money in real estate when you buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But the 1031 exchange specifically exists to start with your sale, and it's how you sell it that lets you keep more of your money. So, yeah,
Perfect.
that's the
Tax
distinction
deferred
there.
indefinitely, music to my ears, man. And so we'll get into more of that in a second. What I think I'd really want you to talk about here, like I said, is kind of unlocked for me, is your silent partner, the government. Okay. But tell me about silent partner. Let's go there
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah. I love it. We're so on the same page here. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, actually, let me just couch this in terms of my own story. 35 years ago, we went into real estate investing because we wanted to jump off the corporate train. We wanted to end up living on a sailboat and raising our family. That was my goal. So, my other nickname, Stephen, is Ready, Fire, Aim Dave.
Love it.
Yeah. So, how hard can it be to become a real estate investor? So, I went and bought a piece of real estate, fixed it up, put a renter in it, then I sold it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we had just kickstarted our 10-year goal to get on the sailboat. And then I went to my accountant that January, who told me I had to write a check for $30,000 to my silent partner. Now, that's 35 years ago. I did not do a 1031 exchange. That's why it still keeps me up at night, sometimes thinking how I could spend all of that money I would have had if I wouldn't have had to pay it to Uncle Sam. Because Uncle Sam acts as your silent partner in a couple different ways. First of all, they're just the government. They say you got to do it. So if you make money, they say, gosh, isn't that great? You made money, give me some of it. But the other really insidious way that the government takes money from you is that there is this game of pretend that they play when you buy investment real estate. They let you pretend that your property loses value every year. Just like if you buy a new car, the next year it's worth less. They let you pretend that your real estate is worth less each year. Now, is that the truth? No, not even close. But they let you pretend it because they give you what's called depreciation as a tax write off. Now, I mean, doesn't that sound like they're really looking out for your best interest? How awesome is that?
Right.
The problem is when you sell, the IRS says, oh, remember that gift of depreciation we gave you for all those years? You have to pay it back. So between the profit that you make from selling a property for more than you bought it for and recapturing, that's what it's called, when you pay back the depreciation, that can amount to, in certain states, 40 to 50% of what you make.
Yep.
Now,
No,
some of that's going to your other silent partner, the wonderful state of California or wherever, but the bulk of it's going to the US government. And the idea of the 1031 exchange is to not let that happen so that money can stay with you. And sure enough, that's what we did from that point on. Every time we sold an investment property, we would do a 1031 exchange. And we would go buy a new property in Stamford, Connecticut, in Florida, all the while moving ourselves towards that boat. And then this is another little life hack that's so awesome. Every so often, we would sell our primary residence. When we did that, as long as we'd lived in it for 2 years, we got to take $500,000 of profit tax-free. And you could do that once every 2 years. So all of the tax-free dollars from that went to the Buy the Boat fund. The rest of it went to buy vacation rental properties. And because of the 1031 exchange specifically, we were able 10 years to the day of setting our goal to sail away on a 53-foot sailboat bought with tax-free dollars, and we raised our 4 children for 10 years, living off of the income from our vacation rentals, which included a whole bunch of deferred tax. So the government actually became my partner to help me achieve something.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. There's a couple things, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pull the thread on that one. It's really cool. But I guess specifically, the reason why, I mean, they are government being a partner, right? They're certainly helping along the way, but it's also because things like the tax breaks and incentives, this kind of seems like it fall in that category, is because they're saying you go produce a thing and we'll give you incentives along the way, right? And that's how they're the silent partner. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of
actually the way you want to
me.
look at the tax code. Don't look at the tax code as the ways in which the government takes your dollars, because then you're always focused on the wrong thing. Instead, look at the ways the government incentivizes you and then do those behaviors.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the government, for 100 years now, has depended on a vibrant, active real estate market to boost the economy. To do that, they've incentivized you by telling you if you have a primary residence, you can keep selling it tax free. What does that do? Well, it lets you take that money and maybe go buy a bigger primary residence, or maybe it lets you take that money and go invest it into equities or starting up a business, all kinds of different things. But here's the other big thing that it does that people don't realize is that when you sell that, you are selling a smaller property that now someone who's just starting out can afford to buy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you're stimulating the whole thing from the top to bottom with the primary residence or with investment property by letting you do it tax deferred in the 1031. But can I just go back and let's talk about that horrible evil statement?
Please
You
correct
gotta
me.
pay
Go ahead.
tax anyways. So I tend to think if there's actually 4 different pillars to the 1031 exchange. They all start with D. The first one is defer because, like we've already talked about, it lets us defer the tax and start the compounding effect of that money for us. The second D is also defer because no matter what stage the real estate cycle is in, you can always use the 1031 exchange to position yourself where the real estate market is giving you the most opportunities. So, because you can sell anywhere in the country and buy anywhere in the country, and you can sell any type of real estate and buy any other type, and because you can sell any number of real estate pieces and buy any number of pieces of real estate, you could go from high appreciation to high cash flow states. You could go from residential to commercial. You could go from small single-family assets into fewer large multifamily assets. Or you could go from one large commercial asset into a truckload of small single-family rentals. Whatever you see and feel the real estate market telling you to do, you can do it without paying tax. That's number
Unreal.
two. Number three is also, as you would imagine, defer. Because just like you can react to the market, wherever it is, you can react to wherever you are in your personal life cycle. Are you starting out? You got more money than brain, or I'm sorry, more energy than brains, and you love swinging a hammer? Well, then buy that first property. And when you sell it, go buy two. And you sell one, go buy four. And ratchet your way up. When you start to get a little more money and a little less energy, sell five properties, consolidate them into one larger property where you can get the economies of scale and the time management that you like.
Mhm.
Start to have kids and you want to build memories, sell and 1031 some of your residential properties to go buy vacation rentals in nice places.
Mm-hmm.
Start to use them some for personal use and build memories with your family, while at the same time, you're still making money.
Yeah.
Position your portfolio for retirement. Here's something we haven't talked about. This is an awesome hack. Remember we said you could sell your primary residence, get that
Mm-hmm.
money tax free? You can also convert investment property into your primary residence. So position all your properties into Florida ahead of retirement. When you sell your last home in, say, Cincinnati, that money's tax free, right? Goes in your pocket. Where are you going to move? Don't go buy another property. Move into one of those investment properties. And
Yeah.
when you convert a property that way, you start the clock ticking so that when you sell it, if you've owned it the right amount of time, you will get to prorate the gain between the period you lived in it and the period it was investment and the period you lived in it, you get tax free. So if you bought a piece of property and used it for 2 years for investment and then moved into it and lived in it for 3 years, you could sell it and you would turn 60% of the gain into tax free. Can it
Yeah.
get any better than that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all those different scenarios I've never had it explained to me that way. I've heard this explained in a sort of like to like transfer is sort of the high level that I've heard, which, real estate, I guess, is the like here. But I really love how you broke that down into different life stages, different thinking of, the starter house to selling it to going bigger, or, having many to, consolidating into one if you start, want more room. And especially the investment part that you just mentioned too, about the last one in Ohio to moving into, the place in Florida. And I mean, I know it's kind of that the meet the person where they're at around, how
Right.
quote unquote sexy can accounting and 1031s and taxes be. But honestly, man, it is so cool. So was that 3 or 4 Ds, by the way?
Well, there's four. I haven't told you the fourth one yet.
Okay, I
What do
thought
you
so.
think it is?
Defer.
I got you. It's not, but it actually speaks back to our statement earlier. The fourth D is die.
Ah,
That's
yes.
not my favorite. It's not your favorite. It's going to happen sooner or later, though. But when you die under current law,
Hmm.
you will get a step up in the basis of your properties. So your heirs will inherit them as if they paid market value for it on the day you die.
As if what?
As if they paid market value for those properties on the day you die. So all of that tax is not paid by you. It's not paid by your estate. It's not paid by your heirs. It literally disappears. And that's how your heirs get that legacy of wealth from all of your hard work. And you get to
Got it.
pass it on to them. So, what's the takeaway? Well, you can defer it as long as you own the property or do a 1031. You'll never pay the tax. You can move your property anywhere, into any type, at any time. You'll never pay the tax. You can move the property throughout your life, and you'll never pay the tax. And when you die, you never pay the tax. So let's review. Do you ever have to pay the tax?
I stand corrected. I will get it tattooed on my forehead, Dave. Got it. Three
Oh my
D's and the
gosh.
fourth one matters.
You and
Thank
Jelly
you.
Roll, except yours will be 1031. His is Amazon, right?
Yeah. Now that's thank you for catching that one and saying that too, by the way. I know I said it, the intent, as we were talking about, is what people sort of say, and that's I think that's such a I love the reset, because what we get, what's the the thing that said death and taxes, right? It's now only one of the two, right?
So
So
far. That is
yeah.
correct. So far.
Awesome. So those are the 4 Ds. I was going to ask you about that. And so you're answering some of that too along the way, which is sort of who is the right person, right? We started off with investors, but then we talk about personal residents. So if I'm the listener, I'm trying to tune in here of cool. So I can do this with my personal real estate as well, right? The
Right.
house
Now
that I
that's
live
a
in.
second, that's a different part of the statute with different requirements. When you sell your primary residence, that's called Section 121. And you just get to sell it. And if you've lived in it for 2 out of the 5 years before selling it, as a married couple, you get the first $500,000 of profit tax free. And you can do that once every 2 years. So I know there's some significant gurus out there that are trying to say, don't own real estate. All you should ever own is investment real estate. Don't ever own the house you live in. There's not enough 4-letter words in the dictionary for me to respond to that. The absolute best thing you could do to set yourself up and your family up for lifetime success is to buy the house you live in periodically when it's time, sell it, and put that money to work because it's tax free. Go
Yeah.
buy equities, go buy other investments, go buy braces for your kids' teeth. It's tax free. And you could do that once every 2 years. That's 8 to 10 opportunities that the government's going to give you for tax free dollars just for owning and living in a house.
100%. I mean, I hope light bulbs went off on everyone that's hearing this. I want to zoom in onto that. So, if you have your primary residence and you've lived in it for 2 years or 2 of 5 years, what would you
2 out of the 5 years before you sell it.
got it? So on year one, I buy a house, or year zero, right? Year zero, buy a house. I'm living it, let's say, for the first 2 years, and then what? I rent out the 3, 4, and 5,
Well,
or what
you
do I
could
do?
sell it. The money's tax free because you've lived in it for two
Okay,
out
but
of the
still,
5 years
yeah,
of
met the
back.
requirement.
But go with what you were saying because this is an awesome strategy because you
Right,
want to become a real estate investor. But how
right,
can you do
exactly.
it? And when you buy your primary residence, many times, most times, the financing is much more advantageous.
Sure.
So you did what you could. You bootstrapped. You bought a house to live in. You lived in it for 2 years. Now what do you
And then
do?
on year 3, 4, and 5, I rent it. And at year two, I went and go buy another one because I've saved up another 2 years worth of pay, high paying tech job. I have this, I can go buy another one and I can rent out the first one. So
Yeah.
then,
And so you just started your career as an investor.
mhm,
You're getting cash flow off of that property. And meanwhile, you're living in another property that you're going to do the same thing with, aren't you?
maybe, but likely. Yeah.
But when you then sell that first property, as long
Mhm.
as it's before the end of year 5, guess what? Did you live in it for 2 out of the previous 5 years?
Yes. Still did.
You still get the 500,000 tax free.
Got it. Do I have to? I'd heard things here around that I have to have certain properties identified at the time or within a time period of sale. Is that
Okay, now
correct?
we're back over on the 1031 side. So all we were talking about here was just primary residence.
let's stick with primary residence then. I didn't want to conflate the two, but let's just stay on that track because I know everyone who's listening can relate to that one. So, so let's stay there for a second. At that point, I have stayed in there for the first 2 years. I've rented out 3, 4, and 5. At year 2, I went and bought another property, and so I'm living at property number 2. So when I sell the first one under 1021, that's when I can get
121, 121.
121, excuse me, then I can still get the same benefits of that cash. Okay, cool. Period. Put to bed. Now let's go back to that time constraint of the for the 1031 because I know this is what you're here to talk about. So let's talk about investment property. So I own my own residence. In this case, I would have bought an investment property, and how do I leverage the 1031 for the investment property?
Okay, so this is what's kind of cool. We're going to come back to this really awesome convergence of the two. But for
Okay.
right now, let's just totally jump tracks. And we're going to talk about the 1031. 121 is your primary residence, it's tax free. 1031 is investment property, and you only get to indefinitely defer the
Mm-hmm.
tax. So with the 1031 exchange, you buy a small rental property, you start renting it out. When you sell it, because you're selling an investment property, that qualifies for a 1031. So you sell that property, and this is where it starts to get a little constricted in how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to have a qualified intermediary. That's someone like me who administers the exchange. You cannot touch the money. So your
Okay.
intermediary has to be involved prior to the closing of the sale. From
Okay.
the closing of the sale, you only have 45 more days to identify your potential replacement properties.
Potential investment property.
Right,
One or
because
more.
we're all talking just 1031.
Yep.
Selling investment, buying investment. You have a total of 180 days to complete the process.
Got
But
it.
that 45-day window can get pretty tight.
Yes.
But remember, the 45 days starts from the closing of your sale. You can be under contract for your new property anytime you want,
Hmm.
including before your old property closes. You
Right.
just have to close the sale of your old property before taking title to the new property.
Got it. So if you're an investor, or even if you're an investor, you'd be looking for deal flow anyway from wherever the new one you want.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop there. I was gonna take us down to the rabbit hole because I'm thinking. So
Well, yeah, I got to take you down this one because it's so cool. So, but to finish out the process of the 1031, identify in 45, close within 180, as long as you purchase at least as much real estate as you sold, and as long as you use all of your proceeds from the sale to do it, you'll defer all tax.
at least as much real estate, so equal or greater value.
Right, to defer all tax. Yeah, that's based on your net sale. So you may sell something for 530,000, but there's $30,000 of closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
Your net sales is really 500.
Got it.
That's your reinvestment target to defer all tax. Now, you can purchase less than that. You simply pay tax on the difference.
Got it.
So there we are. There's the 121 and the 1031. Make sense? So
Yes.
here's a scenario. Because you're out there in tech world, in the
Mm-hmm.
actually let's call it, man, San Jose, Santa Clarita, all of those areas where you can't find a house for less than $1 million. But you bought yours 20 years ago. Do you think you have more than $500,000 in gain?
Yeah.
Probably. You probably got like $1 million in gain, but you don't want to pay tax. So let's go back. Remember the requirements of the 121. You don't have to be living in it when you sell it.
Mm-hmm.
You only have to have lived in it for 2 out of the 5 years prior to selling it. So move out, turn it into a rental, rent it for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and then sell it. Now, what kind of property are you selling? You're
Single
selling
family
an
home.
investment property, aren't you?
Oh, yes, that's true. Oh, yeah.
So
Good
you
point.
could do a 1031 exchange and defer all the tax on it. But I can make it even better than that. Did you also live in that property for 2 out of the previous 5?
Hmm.
You get to take advantage of both sections of the code. You would take $500,000 tax free, and all of the rest of your gain would be deferred in the 1031 exchange.
Really?
I swear.
Wow, that sounds ridiculous.
With enough runway, it's crazy what you'd accomplish. I've got a guy on St. Pete Beach whose retirement, he was a realtor. He bought 3 identical condos side by side. His retirement plan was they're rentals. But then when he got ready to retire, he sold his house, 500,000 tax free. Where did he move? Into the first one of those rentals.
Uh,
Turned it into his primary residence. 3 years later, he sold it. 60% of the gain was tax free. He paid a little bit of tax. Okay. Where did he move?
Next one.
Next
Yeah.
door.
That's that's pretty good. Plus all those proceeds. I mean, you can put that into other things too to
Yeah,
start
that's
paying.
exactly right.
Yeah.
You're generating rents while you drink coffee and look at the beach and wait to sell your next house.
Yeah. Um I mean, dumb question, Dave. Why did you maybe it's just me and maybe I'm projecting here, but why do you find that a lot of people just don't know these well?
Oh, that's exactly what it is. So this 1031 has been part of the statute for over 100 years.
Hmm.
But remember, it's something that the IRS has to give you. They don't necessarily like to do that, so they don't market it for you.
Sure.
You kind of have to
Mhm.
find it. And for 80 years, no, for 60 years, it was really kind of high level attorney driven voodoo.
Yeah.
But there was a court case called Starker versus the Commissioner that was settled in 1996. And that opened the door to people like you and me doing these things. But still, nobody knew about them. So
Hmm.
here's what happened from 96 to 2006, the number of 1031 exchanges went from 70,000 a year to over 700,000 a year
Kind of
in
unreal.
10 years. People
Yeah.
started to figure it out, didn't they?
Hmm.
But what happened in 2007, 2008?
Crash.
So
Yeah.
all of my investors died, got out of real estate investing, or were no longer doing it.
Right.
We lost 66, 2/3 of the people who were realtors at that
Hmm.
point in time went out of the business. And the biggest buying demographic of real estate now in 2007 were 12 years old.
Hmm.
So they were
Right.
not thinking about real estate at all.
Or how to
So
transfer it.
we have had to rebuild this whole base of knowledge from ground zero. And that's literally why we chose the direction that we did to turn our branding not just into a qualified intermediary service,
Hmm.
but into an education provider
Love
to
it.
help people understand how to do them.
Tell me about what an intermediary is. Makes sense. You need to have someone who's it sounds like, not to make this analogous, but like a custodian to help make sure that it goes through.
Yeah,
But tell
that's
me a little
exactly
more
what it
about what.
is.
Got
Think
it.
about with your IRAs and stuff, there has to be a custodian. With the 1031 exchange, there has to be this custodian, and that's going to be the qualified intermediary. Now, I can't make this stuff up, Stephen. A qualified intermediary does not necessarily mean that they have any qualifications at all.
Of
It
course.
simply means that they're not a related party to
Uh huh.
anybody in the transaction. And the IRS, I swear it's in the statute, actually says this: you are qualified as long as you are not disqualified.
Of course. Go see another book for what the rules are there.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly right. So now I don't want that to scare people because over the course of the last decades. Really, it's nerds like me that have gone into this, right? Because we can't do anything else. I'm an accountant, but I can't do your taxes. I
Mm.
only can do your 1031 exchanges. My partners are attorneys, but they don't practice law. So we restrict ourselves. It's like one old guy, and I was talking to a farmer, said, Dave, you're just 2 miles deep in a 2 foot wide creek.
Mm.
So we narrow our focus. That's all we do. That's what your qualified intermediary should be doing for you.
I was about to say that sounds like everything else that we talk about investing of make sure that you specialize in whatever it is that you're doing, the niche, right? Yeah. Okay. So as long as you're not disqualified, you're qualified. And to the degree that you're qualified is really what the person's testing for. Do they know what they're doing?
That's
Right.
how you vet them.
Yeah.
And the best way to vet them is going to be the best way to develop your path, and that's throw your scenario out. Here's where I want to end up.
Mm.
Can you tell me how to do that without having to pay tax? You know,
Absolutely.
I would have found out an awful lot, wouldn't I, 35 years ago, if I would have walked into QI's office and said, in 10 years, I want to be on a sailboat and I want to be living off tax-free dollars. Tell me how.
Right. Yeah, which I mean, 2 points there. I was saving the latter one. You were saying no one come back to the boat. So how did you find out about it? Was it really just that $30,000 tax that that you had to pay, and were you just answering that question, seeking to answer that question of how do I not pay this in the future? Is that really how you started to learn about it?
That was literally the I am so competitive that if I pay $1 to the government, that's a loss. So I was just outraged. But that was also right at the exact same moment
Mm.
that the Starker versus Commissioner case was settled and the IRS lost. So it made
Mm.
pretty good headlines.
Got it.
And
Got it.
you've got friends like this too, the really good friends that always have your back and never cease to mock you mercilessly. When they were done laughing at my tax bill, they said, oh, by the way, we're thinking to start a business that's going to do this to help people avoid it.
Oh, nice.
And I said, yep, let me in. Because the sum total of my education as an accountant on 1031 exchanges, this is in a respected undergraduate degree, was one half of one class.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's
Yeah.
where we were supposed to learn enough to cover 10,000 pages of case law over 100 years.
Right.
But yeah, that was how I found it.
Unreal. Cool. So let's complete that story loop because I love the boat vision, and super cool that you have your 4 kids. I'm the youngest of 4 brothers, so 4 always stands out to me. Is your boat was the boat is your boat? I don't know if you still have it or not. Is that considered primary residence or a investment property? How the heck do you do that? Or was that just from the sale and you get the 500K after non-tax dollars and you bought a boat with it? How does this complete? How
Well,
does
that's
this end?
exactly right. Because a boat is not considered a real estate,
Right. That's why I'm asking.
right? But the tax dollars that were tax free from selling our primary residence, I could use for anything.
Mm,
So we
got
used
it.
those to buy the boat.
Hmm.
And the 1031 exchanges went from selling real estate to buying other investment real estate.
Got it.
So that's how that was. Now, interestingly enough, though, we could have, if we chose to, done a refinance of that boat. And the mortgage interest on a boat is tax deductible as long as it has a place to sleep and a
Mm,
bathroom and a place to cook food.
wow.
So it's not real estate, but you can write off real estate interest on it. And let me just really freak your head out here. Although we lived on the boat and the boat was not real estate, I lived for 4 years in Key West, Florida,
Yeah.
on my boat, on a piece of real estate that had been purchased by one of my clients in a 1031 exchange. Can you guess the how in that riddle?
The how in the rental?
How I was able to do that as a riddle?
Uh, how you were able to do that? Um, I'm wrapping my mind around the boat aspects. I don't know how.
My client did a 1031 exchange and sold a pharmacy building, and one of his purchases was a boat slip.
Yeah.
Because the boat slip was deeded, it's considered to be real estate. So he
Right.
did a 1031 exchange into a piece of liquid real estate, and then we rented the slip from him and parked our boat there for several years.
Oh, got it. Of course. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. This is dumb. I love it. It's a whole new as you learn more and more about this, the whole ideas about quote unquote financial engineering just makes so much sense. And I mean, it can be so much fun too because you're not just talking numbers. You're talking like everything that's behind the numbers is a piece of life. It's a piece of enjoyment, it's a piece of memory, it's a piece of whatever. And that's why I hear that too, like, oh, taxes. I'm like, no, dude, like this. Don't you want to keep more?
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of funny. My encouragement to younger people today is gamify it,
yeah,
right? Gamify life. There's
100%.
an app that one of my kids plays called Business Empire, I think, and it's all virtual dollars, and they're buying and selling and all this stuff. I was like,
Do
shoot,
that in real life.
go do it in real life.
Yeah,
It's just as
exactly.
much fun, and you'll benefit more.
100%. All right, man. I could talk to you all day about this stuff, really. So, we're one of the things we talk a lot on the podcast is about limited partnerships, investing in commercial real estate. Multifamily. People have come on for self storage, for mobile home parks, what have you, whatever kind of makes sense for them, right?
Sure.
Um, and especially with the tech professional, accredited investors, high W-2 income, and they want to leverage their capital to invest in things that don't take the same amount of time as it might be, even if they're only just buying a new house on year 2 and turning their primary or old primary residence into something, right? And so how can our investors, listeners, use 1031 for doing limited partnerships, investing,
Okay.
the 50K, the 100K, hold 5 years, we'll just call
Sure.
it for easy numbers. How do they use 1031 for that?
So there's a number of ways to make this work. But first, let's start with what the challenge is.
Okay.
When you're doing a 1031 exchange, you have to sell investment real estate, you have to buy investment real estate.
Right.
The problem with most LPs and syndications are that what you're buying is not real estate.
Shares.
You're buying a membership interest in an entity that owns real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't do your own 1031 to sell a single family rental and go buy a membership in a syndication necessarily.
Got it.
So that's the challenge. But how can we do it? Well, there are these syndications, in quotes, that have actually been blessed by the IRS called Delaware Statutory Trusts.
Mm-hmm.
Those are considered to be the same thing as real estate. So you could sell a piece of investment real estate, go buy Delaware Statutory Trust. Totally passive, no management. You get all the benefits of real estate, including all the components of the IRR, the internal
Mm-hmm.
rate of return, appreciation, cash flow, depreciation, and amortization of the loan. But they qualify for the 1031. Easy enough. If you want to go specifically into like a multifamily syndication or a private LP, then some other things have to happen. Either they have to be willing to sell you a part of the property as a tenant in common. So you end up owning part of the property, they end up owning part of the property. Because you now both own real estate, yours qualified for the 1031. And then they manage it to do their own thing. That can be good. There's not many that will do it because it's complicated for them to put together. And generally the minimums are pretty high.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. You could be part of it. I'm actually part of a syndication right now that's going through this where we are selling the subject property. So we all invested in the syndication, and now we're selling it. But we're going to do a 1031 exchange on the whole property.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought it for a couple million, we're selling it for 5, and we're going to go and use that as the down payment on a $14 million property.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who is a member of the LP
Yep.
simply goes along with it. All the
Got it.
tax stays deferred.
Got
That's
it.
kind of a nice way.
That is.
Here's what I think is the most practical way, and it's also kind of the most fun. So when I do a 1031 exchange, to defer all tax, I have to purchase at least as much as I sell. I have to use all the cash to do it, right? So let's say I sold a piece of property for $500,000 and it had $250,000 in real estate. It had, say $300,000 in $200,000 in loans.
Okay.
So I have $300,000 and I need to purchase $500,000 in real estate.
Okay.
So the first property I buy is a single family rental for $300,000 for $250,000 cash. Now, I still have to buy $250,000 of real estate, and I have $50,000 to do that. So I then go buy another property using the $50,000 as a down payment. So now, if the dust settles, did I purchase at least $500,000 in real estate? Yeah. Did I use all $300,000 to do it? Yeah. So I fully deferred all tax, right?
Yeah, two different places. One was the 250 and
Right.
one was 50 somewhere else.
But one of those places now has no debt.
Yeah.
So my equity's concentrated. So at any time I want to, I could do a cash out refinance, pull out $200,000. Cash out refinances are not taxable events, and you could use that money for anything you want. So I do a cash out refinance of the free and clear property, take the $200,000 and invest it in the syndication of my choice.
Got it.
No tax paid. And at the end of the day, I've got a syndication investment and I've got 2 single family investments and I have no tax.
And you don't have to worry about the light kind from real estate to the shares of
Exactly.
LLC.
Exactly. And then once that threshold is crossed, the thing that I always recommend for my people, which is what I do, is that I try to keep real estate investments on one side, equity investments on the other.
What on one side?
Real estate and like equity or non-real estate.
Got it.
Stocks, bonds, syndications, because those don't carry necessarily the same tax benefits. And if I keep my real estate off on one side, I can always 1031.
Yeah, if you're considering it just from the lens of 1031, which we are, absolutely. I was just thinking about the other parts too of income and passive losses too. But that's a different topic. Yeah.
We could talk about passive losses and depreciation till the cows come home. But the 1031 defers it.
I'd love to have an episode with you just on that, to be honest. If you're willing.
Absolutely.
Cool. I'll make a note right now. I think that's so needed. Super cool. All right. So I want to be conscious of your time here too. And we've been already going at this for almost an hour. So talk to me about what are some of the myths that you hear, or maybe common questions that you get from people that you're like, no, that's not right. I have met all of, I am qualified to do this because I'm not disqualified and I have the experience. Let me tell you why this is a myth. What are some of those things that you hear from people?
You know what's really funny? This goes all the way back. The greatest myth that everybody has is, I have to pay the tax someday. Why not now? And my clients will hear it from their accountant all day long. And I don't want to say it's because the accountant's lazy, but come on, we've already demonstrated you don't have to pay it. They'll get it from their financial advisor all day long. Now, that's a little more understandable
Hmm.
because a financial advisor is not going to make money as long as you're investing in real estate.
Sure.
They'd love to see you move that money into equities, and they're going to make up for the tax because they're going to buy really, really well for you. Okay, whatever. Um, that's the biggest myth is you're going to have to pay tax. The other thing that kind of goes along with that is deferring that tax isn't a benefit. It's not long term. To which I say, I would challenge them, go back and ask that person if they have an IRA. Do they have a 401k?
Hmm.
Why? If there's no benefit in deferring tax, why are we doing it? The answer is
Right.
because there's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
We just don't understand it. Those are the two biggest myths. Along with, and this is kind of structurally, people think that all you have to reinvest is the profit from your sale. I made $100,000 in this sale. I'm selling for 500,000, so I should only have to go buy something for 100,000 because
Hmm.
that's all I'm ever going to pay tax on. Well, that is true. That if you did not do a 1031 exchange, you'd only pay tax on that 100,000. But the IRS, once again, because they're the IRS, changes the rules. It says that if you're doing a 1031 exchange, the $100,000 you pull out is always going to be profit first.
Hmm.
So you say, but I'm pulling out my original capital. The IRS says, no, you're not. You're pulling out profit.
Got it.
Makes
Got
sense
it. Got
both
it.
ways. They've
Yeah.
got nuclear weapons, so they win.
Yeah, that's certainly true. You talked about IRS just having the ability to change things, right? Kind of whenever they want. Now, you also, I'm sure there's been nuances that have changed over time with 1031. Other just other things, policies coming out. What can we expect? Is there anything on the horizon that we can expect to know that might be changing as well? Do things change often, or is there usually cycles to pay attention to?
Yeah, they really don't change that often because one of the greatest real estate ownership bodies in America happens to be the U.S. Congress. So they really don't want to see it messed with either. But every president that I have been under since I started doing these has talked about getting away from them, eliminating them, because it's seen as low hanging fruit. It's easy tax dollars to grab. It's
Uh,
seen as a rich guy's game. We're taking the money from these rich people. And so everybody's talked about it, with the exception, this will surprise you,
hmm,
of one president. None of them changed it a bit. And that one president is the least one you would expect. It was Donald Trump
no
in
kidding.
2017. And here's
Wow.
what he did: 1031 used to qualify like kind was real estate for real estate
Yeah, that's what I
or
remember hearing about.
personal property for personal property. So you could sell heavy equipment and use a 1031 exchange to purchase more heavy
Heavy
equipment
equipment.
or
Right.
a jet plane to purchase another jet plane. In 2017, he eliminated the personal property, but then he gave, check this out, 100% bonus depreciation,
Oh,
right?
right. Right.
Who owns a 747 airplane that may have wanted to write the whole thing off?
Trump. Got it.
Coincidence?
Interesting.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But that eliminated that. So, but that's all that he did. What's more
Hmm.
concerning for me now is he doesn't have any other policies to mess with it. But the current sitting president and Vice President Harris, the nominee, both want to mess with 1031s. President Biden wanted to eliminate them altogether, tried several times. Congress slapped him down every time. And here's why: because if you eliminated 1031 exchanges, you're going to get some capital gains tax in the coffers, right?
Yep.
But what do you lose? People are going to hang on to properties longer, aren't they?
Yeah. Hmm.
So when they do that, you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
2 realtors commissions, 2 title company closings, 2 property stagers, 2 inspectors, two
Transactions,
appraisers.
title.
All of that, all of those people pay ordinary income tax,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is more. They lose livelihood. The government loses billions of dollars more in tax revenue. And that's why the last time this came to a vote, the U.S. Senate voted unanimously no changes to 1031. Well, along comes Vice President Harris, wanted to say, we're going to beat up the rich guys, right? So we're going to limit this to $500,000 in gain. You can still do 1031s, but we're going to limit it. Okay, in theory, someone says, well, why not? It's the rich guy's thing. Do you know, Stephen, the average sales price of a 1031 property is less than $400,000?
Makes sense.
Is that really a rich guy's game?
No.
But more importantly, remember that transition. If the people at the top cannot sell and buy bigger and more, how can the people at the bottom
Exactly.
find properties to buy?
It's a life cycle.
Yeah. So it's really very poorly orchestrated and planned. But the worst thing about their whole tax policy is that they want to eliminate the step up in basis. So everybody that's got $100 that they want to leave to their children as a legacy is going to have to pay tax on that first if the Democrats win the White House and they get it put into law. The elimination of the step up in basis, yeah, it's going to generate some money. But I like to think that you and I worked pretty hard and that we would want to give it to our children so they could work hard and benefit from what we've done as well. So those are the things that concern me that are kind of out there now.
So it's not going to happen. Changes don't really happen. It's gone quite a few times to make changes, and it hasn't. And the change, and for some of the drivers, some of the reasons why they wouldn't is because if you bring up more of those, you basically bring up more walls, then people will be holding on properties longer, and all the other people who provide services would lose their ordinary income too. People would be holding on and not paying anything. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point to.
And I lose my job. So you'd have to let me squat in your backyard.
All right, as long as we have good conversations, Dave, you're on. But we'll have to do some boat trips. All right.
That sounds good.
It sounds good. I love it. Talk to me about, we covered a lot of good stuff in here, and I honestly, I'll be going back into listening, but I know you've got, and you've put out an Amazon bestseller, Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth: The Real Estate Investor's Guide to 1031 Exchange. Talk to me about the book. What can listeners expect to when, if for those that get it, what they can learn?
Yeah, I started writing that book thinking I was just writing a how-to manual, right? By the time it was done, I realized that what I was actually doing was creating a flight plan and the way to customize your flight plan. So all of these things that we talked about are all components of that book. Not just here's what you got to do, but what do you want to do? Let's see how the 1031 can make that happen for you.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, so important. What you said earlier too is depending on what the goals are, where you are in life, and everything. I absolutely love this. I'm looking forward to the episode. I want to do another one with you about depreciation and everything. I think that would be a great, part 2 of the series too. I learned a ton here. I didn't know about the 121, but that's really cool. Another kind of arrow in the quiver to know about too. I asked this question to my guest, not from a, let's look backwards. I know, like you said, hard workers like us, we want to look forward. We want to figure out, new ways to do things, better ways, be competitive, make stuff happen. But also, you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And arguably everything you shared today was part of that. But, maybe a nugget of investing experience or something that you would share with yourself when you were first starting out, or something that, you're telling your kids to make sure you do this or that? What can you share with newer investors as they start in their journey?
Yeah, I would say there's two things. One of them is real estate specific, and that is learn the value of patience.
Mm,
Patience is not inactivity. Patience is letting events work for you. And real estate done right is a long game that will reward you far beyond your wildest dreams. But you got to be patient. And the more patient you are, interestingly enough, the less you'll work. So I'm a big believer in telling people that because I love that. The second one is just life. We have a mantra in our family that is memories over money. There's always time, there's always room, there's always ways to make money. Making memories last forever, and you don't always have the opportunities for those. So, what I love to do in my life, I try and combine them, and we try to make
mm.
memories along the way while we're making money.
Ah, man. Thanks for sharing those. I need to hear that too. Awesome. Dave, where can people find you at, sir?
Best place to go right to our website. We've created it with education in mind. The1031investor.com. Access to calculators to help you figure your gain situation. A 67 video YouTube channel and growing
Nice.
every day. Uh, Access to set up appointments to talk to us. I mean, that's key. It's understanding, right? I want to know where you're at. I'll help you get where you want to be. And all of that's found at the1031investor.com.
Outstanding. I'll make sure the links are in the show notes as well. All those resources will be there, including your contact, direct links to the website, et cetera, et cetera. And man, Dave, pleasure to chat with you today. Appreciate you, sir.
It was awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Path to Passive. We love connecting with our listeners and those on the path to architecting their wealth and improving their lives. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see in future episodes. Get in touch with us through email or Instagram. See you next week for a new episode.